Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome along to this Zeald webinar. This is the third in our series, Keep Calm and Get Digital. My name is Lisa and I will be your moderator for today's webinar, stepping in for the usual Jara. So please be kind and patient with me as I work my way through this. COVID-19 has hit NZ and it's hit hard. What we considered normal a couple of weeks ago really now is a distant memory. I'm sure we're all reading the news every day to keep ourselves up to date with sort of what's happening in the next few days, whereas before we may have waited till after work. Business in New Zealand in particular is going to have to keep rapidly evolving and transforming to survive during this time. And that's why it is so important for us to speak about search engine optimization today. Search engine optimization is the longer term strategy in the digital world, and now is a good time to be making some changes or even making a start on this on your website. What we are hoping to do with this webinar series is provide some insight into how you can adapt to these changes and be ready to survive and thrive as the situation unfolds. We have some fantastic speakers today. First up, Jara Borman, our Senior Digital Business Strategist and Agency General Manager here at Zeald. Jara has worked with numerous businesses over the years, providing strategies for both short and long-term solutions, and has compiled some top expert tips today to get you started on your SEO. Also on our panel is Bruce Marjorie-Banks, Marketing Advisor for our Tauranga agency, and he'll be discussing the marketing strategy, SEO strategies you can implement once further to what Jara's covered today. Just wanting to cover off some housekeeping rules. So we will be feel free to post questions anytime throughout the seminar today. Some of the questions we may keep till the end at our question and answer section. However, if they are relevant to what we're discussing right there and then, we may bring them up during the segment. Once we get to the Q&A section, you can participate by either putting up your hand down the bottom here or posting something in the Q&A button here. The other thing, just so you're aware of, if you can't hear me right now and you can't see us at all, perhaps you may need to look at these audio settings over here. Under that, you might just need to switch to which audio device you are using. So that's enough from me right now. I hope you enjoyed today's session, and I'd like to invite Jara now to talk us through the basics of SEO.
Cool, thanks Lisa. So today's topic is SEO, or search engine optimization, which is a mouthful, which is why we shortened it to SEO. So this is the practice of organizing your information and especially content in a way that allows Google to see you as authoritative on a particular topic. This obviously leads to higher rankings in Google search results, more traffic, and ultimately more sales if you can get it, right? So it's important to understand here how Google works, right? At a high level, what Google is constantly trying to do is find the best answer it can to the searches it receives. Now, Google's done a great job of this. That's why 93% of New Zealanders use Google as their search result engine. So yeah, it's basically where everyone goes to look for information. So it's such an important topic, and that's probably why you're here today, to understand a little bit more about it. The key to understanding this is that it is actually all about content. All of the tips that we'll give you today are essentially not going to work unless you've actually got some good base content to work with. And so this has got to be a reasonable amount of information about a topic that is important to your business. It's either your business, your product, your service, and information like that. So we're going to assume here that you've got some base content to work with, and we're going to look at how can we help you kind of tag that information and adjust it in such a way that Google is able to index it and see you as authoritative on the topic that's important. All right, so let's get into it. So SEO is a really big topic. This is just gives you an idea of how it starts to be broken down into individual components. We're really only going to focus today on the on-page SEO components and just give you some practical tips on how you can write your own on-page metadata and information like that. It is a much bigger topic than what we'll cover today, but we really are going to focus on the on-page work and what you can do on your website to influence Google. once again, this is really supporting content that you've already created. So if you haven't actually got any content, you've only got maybe one line about your business or a single image, then this is probably not really enough. You're going to need to write out a bit more before we can really start to put these things into practice, or at least get some good results out of them. So on-page SEO are the things that you can control on your website. Right, so it kind of makes sense in terms of its name, and off-page SEO are those things that you can adjust or influence that are off your website. And the two of these things together make up search engine optimization. So let's have a look at the basics of SEO, some of the components that you'll need to know. All right, the head title is the most important on-page element, and this is for search engines. All right, think about the head title is a tag for a page on a website. It is very similar to the headline of a newspaper article. Right, it's really important to get this right. It tells search engines what that page is all about. And the equivalent of not having head titles done well is trying to read a newspaper with no headlines. It would be impossible to try and find the articles that you wanted to read. And so that's why this is so critical, and the first thing that we always look at when it comes to SEO. So there's a meta description is another thing that we're going to look at. This is written for humans. So Google itself says the meta description is the pitch. This is what you want to pitch to people in terms of why they should use you. And it's something that you can write and control and present to people in a Google search result. Then there's the H1 tag. This is the first heading on a website page. It's important this has the right information in it. And then there's some detail around maybe a readable URL, and that is the string that you have for your website page, and it's often referred to as the slug as well. I'll show you more detail about that as we get through. And then obviously the content, right? And so even though I've got this last, it is probably the most important thing, because none of the other items will actually have any impact if you adjust them, unless you've got the content right. And that content needs to have what we call some keyword density. All right, so we'll explain that a little bit more as we get it. So just to give you some context, all these items that we're talking about, the title tag, the slug, and the meta description, these are attributes or elements that you can control that publish directly into a Google search result. All right, so if you were to control your title tag, this is what you see come up at the top in a Google search result page, and you actually have complete control over this for every page on your website. That's why this is the topic of today's discussion for SEO basics, is in my opinion, every website owner or person that manages a website should know how to control these pieces of information that publish through to Google. So the title tag is not actually viewable on your website itself when you're looking at it, but it does appear here within search engine results, and you can see it if you hover over the tab at the top of a website browser. So this is the first bit, your title tag. That's why it's so important. Then you've got your URL or slug, and this is, if it's readable, then people can actually understand what the page might be about. And then the meta description. This isn't actually used by search engines, it's used for humans, and this is where you make your pitch and tell people why they should open your website page. You can put an offer in there as well. It's quite good to do. So my first expert tip is that if you're on WordPress, and WordPress powers about 60% of websites in the world, then get the free Yoast SEO plugin. This will allow you to set metadata like head title, descriptions, etc., for each of the pages on your website. Right? Without having that in place, it's very difficult to adjust, especially on WordPress. A lot of other content management systems allow you to adjust this information quite natively. So once we've got some content, or even potentially before we've created some content, we want to try and figure out what keywords are best to use. All right, so the objective here with keyword research is to find the opportunity. So what are people looking for? And what do you provide? What's the connection there? So what are the most relevant keywords with the highest volume that you'd like to rank for that will have a meaningful impact on your business? And so defining these very, very early on is important. Often you'll write content around these terms as a way of trying to rank for them. So essentially you have to have content for this topic if you want to be able to rank for it. So where to start? Here's your first another practical tip, right? Using Google's keyword planner will give you some real insight into what people are looking for when it comes to your business, your product, your services. So you don't need to guess what keywords are the most important. You start with some research, right? So go to Google Keyword Planner, and a site scrape is a fantastic service that you can use. So you essentially put in the page, the URL into this section here, the landing page. This could be your home page, it could be a product page, and get Google to run a site scrape. What it will do is read the content and see what terms people are searching for, what keywords people are searching for that relate to the content that you have. And you can do this for each of your landing pages. This will give you a really good idea of what keywords are being searched that relate to those products and services you have on your landing pages. All right, this is where you get your ideas from. And so here's a breakdown of what you'll get. Sorry, that jumped through on me. And so the result here will show you search volumes. So you'll be able to see, in this case, I've done a search for one of my clients, Mission Kayaking, and you'll see that in New Zealand, where I've set it, there are 1,000 to 10,000 searches per month for the term kayak NZ. Ocean kayak, it's a much lower keyword term. There's only 100 to 1,000 searches. So you won't get an exact number of searches there are on a monthly basis. It will be a range, but it will be enough information for you to determine that this is probably a more important keyword than this one. Building up a keyword list like this is really important, and you can actually export and download this into a CSV file and do some more organization around which keywords are most important for you. Once you've got keywords together in a list, then you want to try and start mapping them through to different pages. Here's a few tips on how to map keywords. The homepage shouldn't try and win everything. And you see this often when people are trying to do some SEO. So they'll find a bunch of keywords, maybe 10 keywords that they think are really important, and they'll stuff them all in to try and get the homepage to rank for these terms. And that's actually really counterproductive. So that will actually have the opposite impact. Google will see you as keyword stuffing, and your site won't rank. And so it's really important that you map different keywords to different pages, and you want to try and ensure that those keywords match the content in each of those pages. Ideally, you're only looking for 1 to 2 keywords per page. A primary and secondary keyword target are good practice, and you could consider what's called silo grouping, which I'll show you through in a minute, around how you can actually group keywords into themes and have them mapped across your site as well. The most valuable keywords that you're looking for should be mapped to pages as close as possible to the homepage. The most important keyword for you, the first 2, should really be mapped directly to the homepage, and then the further lower down the list of the importance of the keyword, the further it should be from the homepage. So once again, content pages relevant to the most valuable keywords should be created, and you should have them as close to the homepage as possible. By being as close to the homepage, I mean you can get to them from 1 click from the homepage rather than several. So expert tip on short search terms, define your target keywords first through research, and an advanced tip is actually define questions that people may be asking of Google and try and answer them on blog pages and things like that. This is really important because Google is actually rebuilt its entire search engine to recognize natural language, and so people ask questions of Google all the time. In fact, 1 in 5 queries, I think, to Google, last time I looked, were a combination of terms that Google had never seen before, which indicates people are actually asking whole questions of Google. So once you've got the basics with this basic keyword list and mapped different pages, start trying to think of questions that people might be asking Google that are relevant to your business, and then potentially answer them on different pages on your site as well. I've seen some really good success out of using that strategy. So once you've got your list of keywords and you're looking to try and map them to different pages, silos is really important, right? So what this can do is allow you to organize your content in such a way that it makes sense for people to navigate to, but you can also structure the keywords and the metadata in such a way that it allows Google to work out which pages are important. All right, so the more important the term, the closer it is to the homepage. So in this particular case, we've got a website that's about playing the guitar. And so the central term is how to play the guitar. Our siloed sections, all right, then become how to play different subsets of guitar music: blues guitar, classical guitar, and acoustic guitar. And then from there, you'd have articles on specific, like maybe specific pieces of music for each of those different themes. All right, and so instead of trying to win searches for blues guitar on the homepage, you make the homepage the more general term, and then you have what we call landing pages for each of these subtopics. And this would work really well for yourself with your own products in general, and then your categories of products, or potentially your different services and sub-services that you have within them as well. Right, so once again, we go back to the start. So head titles are the most important element on any given page, and they should be different for every single page on your website. So I'm going to give you some tips on how to write these and also how to structure them with some examples as well. These are written for search engines, right? They make up the largest proportion of on-page SEO. By that, I mean they've got a really high weighting, right? The better this is done, the more impact you're going to have on your ranking for any kind of thing you could do on any individual page. So remember, you're making a claim with this title, right? So think about it back as that newspaper analogy. You're making if you have a headline, you better have an article that matches that headline, or people are going to get pretty annoyed reading your newspaper. Same goes with search engines. If you are making a claim with the head title, you need to make sure that you've got content that matches, all right? Content needs to be unique per page, and it is the head title is written left to right in order of importance. So some detail around formatting here. Terms are separated by pipes. You may see these vertical lines a lot in a Google search result page. This is how you define or differentiate between different terms. And often a good way to approach this if you're just getting started is to just have what, where, and who as the structure for the metadata or the head title. This could be primary keyword, secondary keyword, and brand name. Typically, you only have 50 to 60 characters, so make sure you keep that short and punchy, and that's the best way to write it. So the meta description, right? I've got an example of how this displays. This is once again written for humans. This is your sales pitch, right? So if we look at how Zeald shows up in a Google search result, we've got, we specialize in the rapid digital transformation of small to medium-sized businesses. This is less about keywords. It's more about why someone should go and open this website and work with you. So it's where you make your sales pitch, right? And by setting the meta description on each page, you actually control what appears in a search result. If you don't set this, Google will actually just randomly grab bits of information out of that page and try and compile something. And you'll often see that now that you're potentially aware of it, result, you'll see a lot of descriptions like this written with sections of sentences and lots of dots in between them. They actually make no sense from a readability point of view. It's Google's attempt to try and compile something that represents that page. And that's because someone hasn't written a meta description and set it accurately. So it's something that you control, and so I highly recommend you do. Include a value proposition. Why should someone work with you? This directly impacts the rate at which people open your website, or the click-through rate, CTR. A high click-through rate also improves your search engine optimization. The more popular a site is, the more Google is likely to recommend it. The description should be written shorter than 160 characters so that it can display and not get chopped off. And once again, this should be in the same way that the meta description is, it should be unique per page. And you should explain why people should click. I've already covered this. If it's not used, Google will just sample content out of the page based on the search result. And so it'll come across nowhere near as well as if you've set it yourself. So the meta keywords tag was traditionally used by a lot of search engine optimization specialists. I put danger here because a lot of people think this is how you rank, and often people just get it wrong, and it can have a really negative impact. The worst thing you can do is just stuff heaps of keywords into the keyword tag on your website, expecting that that's going to get you search traffic. If I actually go back to early days when I had one of my first websites being launched, a developer said to me, "We can get you heaps of traffic. What we're going to do is we're going to put trade me in your keyword terms. We'll trick people and we'll get you lots of traffic." Yeah, don't do that. This is not utilized by Google, but it can create penalties if used incorrectly. All right, so it's better to avoid it. However, if you're going to use it, only use 8 to 10 keywords at most. And the reason that you might use this is that some websites, content management systems use this for internal search. All right, so sometimes it is very, very useful. So it's in this format, it should be listed with commas, and yeah, that's how it's written. So when we get to the page, all right, the first title is called the H1, right? So the first title you get when you arrive on a website page, this is what a user will see. It's the first headline. It should be tagged with what's called an H1 tag, and this should contain your primary keyword that you're trying to rank for. This is for consistency purpose, right? So you've made a claim with the title, then you've backed it up with the first H1 tag. It is really important you feature those keywords in the copy of the page as well, so the content, ideally in the first sentence or two. Remember, keyword optimization is to help content be found. So this whole process that we're talking about is to help content be discovered by Google. Google sends out little computer bots that go out and collect all the information in the world. All of this tagging that we're talking about is making it easier for those robots to find your content and present it on a Google search result page. All right, here's a quick example of what it could look like. This is for a sandblasting company that I just made up called ABC Sandblasters, right? So we did some keyword research for them, assume we've done that, and we found that sandblasting is their primary keyword and surface finishing is their secondary keyword. And so we've written a title for the homepage of their website that is sandblasting and surface finishing, ABC Sanders. And you'll see that's 50 characters long, it fits within the limit. And this makes a claim on sandblasting and surface finishing. Then in the meta description, we've made a pitch. ABC Sandblasters provide high quality sandblasting and surface finishing services. Call today for a free quote. We've even put an offer in there, all right, just to try and get people excited in a search result to go to that website. The H1 tag, quality sandblasting and surface finishing. This is pretty basic, the way that I've written it, just to illustrate the point, but they've got those keywords there. And then in the copy, in the first sentence, we've also got them repeated there, but it's more of a story about this company. Right, so there's an example of how you can structure some keywords mapped to a particular page. And ultimately, this would be different for every page on the website. This is just an example for the homepage. So URLs and alt tags. So if you want to get a little bit further and more advanced, then once you've done the primary keyword mapping to the titles, descriptions, etc., then you want to try and make sure that your URLs are readable, and you maybe have a particular page for abrasive blasting, right? This is a secondary keyword target, and the page name for that has the keyword in the URL. And wherever possible, also put the keywords into the alt text on an image. All right, this is something that a lot of systems will allow you to do. It's what's called alternative text, and you can set that for each of the images on your site so that Google knows what that image is about. So additional tips here, let's go through them. Focus on great content first, then go through this process to structure it with the relevant tags. Keep the keyword targets simple. Don't over-optimize and try and stuff too many keywords into things and trying to be too clever. Ultimately, what we're trying to do here is just make it very easy for Google to understand what your website is about and how it can rank you, all right? Keyword integration into the copy needs to be as natural as possible. So when you're writing it, trying to insert some keywords into your text, don't just stuff as many as you can in there so that it doesn't make sense. And competitive industries combine the SEO outlined with some tech strategies with this basic stuff with some more technical SEO and some off-page optimization for best results. So let's be clear, this on its own, especially in competitive industries, is not going to be enough. It's just a starting point, and you will need to get into some more advanced SEO tactics. So that's my presentation. We'll move on into the panel section. So to hand back to you, Lisa.
Thanks, Jarrah, for taking us through that. Certainly some good pointers in there, and certainly even if you have done SEO, you can go back and review and make sure it's in line with that. So now I'd like to welcome Bruce, who is on the panelists for today. Welcome along, Bruce, and thanks for joining again.
Hi, Lisa.
Hi. So, I mean, you work in this space, so why is it important to be generating new content on a website?
Yeah, so new content, there's a few misconceptions around new content. So the one is the freshness one. That is really specific to any search which is time sensitive. So it's anything news related right now. You think if you typed in something to do with COVID-19 that was happening 2 weeks ago or published 2 weeks ago, it probably won't appear in Google. They're that switched on. They know exactly what needs to be at any given time. And it's relevant to anything that may be, here's the best movies for 2020, or a search like that as well. Of course, that's what fresh content is all about. For the average business who's not necessarily publishing on that particular, I guess, topics, you're more looking at the context of what people are typing into Google and what they would expect. So Google will know quite quickly if you type in something that's product related, you only get up product searches. If you do an information-based search, you'll only get information pages around that. And if you're wondering what you need to do to rank in the top, is do the searches that you want to rank for, and have a look at those pages. Have a look at the top 3. Have a look at what they're doing with their content. What types of content are on the page? Have they got lots of videos and PDFs? And is it rich media, or is it all text-based in what they're doing? Or is it short articles compared to long form? And that'll give you an idea of what Google are expecting and consider good. There are a few other factors that will determine where they're ranking. We won't cover them all now, links and those types of things, but that one is definitely the best starting point.
Okay, fantastic. Thanks, Bruce. We have had a question come through from our attendees. So Nikki has asked, and for either of you to answer, how do you put an alt text to an image? And how do you also write it?
Okay, so will I take that one, Jar? Okay, so that will be usually in the content management system that you're working with. It'll give you the opportunity, most of them, to write a title and to write alt text. So what Google are expecting is for you to describe with your alt text what that image is about. So there's no real rules over how long it should be, but you don't want to load it full of keywords or do anything silly like that. Just describe what that image is, be the best tactic.
Fantastic. So, there's obviously a lot out there that you can pay for in terms of marketing, but are there any free services that will help you with SEO?
Yeah, so the first one is, especially if you've just started out, is make sure you've claimed your Google My Business listing and that you've filled it out correctly, because that turns up a lot in the local search results. If you do a search for maybe a local dentist, you'll see the maps and you'll see what's called a 3-pack now, and there'll be 3 listings. They're determined by someone who's got a decent Google My Business listing. And by decent, I mean lots of good reviews as well. So you filled out everything, you put the videos and your images and all your business details, open times, all of that type of stuff. But also you want to start collecting reviews. Different ways of doing that. The easiest way is just send an email to your customers and tell them to go there and leave a review. Google has made it incredibly simple now. It's just one click and leave a review. And then there are more advanced tools which will automate that for you, but they are paid on that side.
Good to hear.
Yeah, so maybe also there is one other free tool I'd recommend too, which is it's a tool called Answer the Public. What it is good for, it relates back to more what Jared was talking about on the keyword research. This tool takes everything that's in Google and a few other tools and will show you all the questions that have been asked for that particular market. All that. So start off with it, maybe a 2 or 3 word phrase, and have a look at all the questions that come back. If you start answering those questions as part of your content strategy, that's where a lot of people these days will discover you. They discover a lot of websites through the questions that get answered, and then they discover the brand. Whereas in 20 years ago, people would advertise the brand and then you'd learn out more of what that company can offer. It's flipped now. It's usually the reverse, that people will discover you, especially through organic search.
Okay, great to hear. We've got some more questions that have come through. So the first one from Ravender. So, well, I guess first, is there a type of website or content management system that is best for SEO? And if there is, what are they?
Yeah, we're probably at the stage now where it's hard not to get one that is best practice. You do have ones that, such as WordPress, is one that is okay. There's a number of plugins that come with it that make it best practice. So there's a free one called Yoast SEO, which will get it up to scratch quite quickly. It can be upgraded to a commercial version, but the free one is quite good. Not too many would not have the ability to write your own meta titles and descriptions. Sometimes they can do some funny things around URLs. They can put, I don't want to overcomplicate it, but they can put a lot of parameters in the URLs that Google don't like and make it very hard for them to index pages. They can make a lot of mistakes in terms of duplicating content. So a good, say, e-commerce system would give you the ability to say, this is the original You might have a product that's in one category, but you need that same product in maybe a few other areas of the website. What you can do is tell Google that this product in this category is the one I want to turn up in search results and not the other ones. Things like that. So there's probably a long list of gotchas that maybe we could put something together and follow up on that. But yeah, most tools are pretty good at that stuff these days.
Fantastic. Another one is there any sort of advice or maybe a quick tip for people with redirected sites in their SEO?
Yeah, and redirected in terms of how long ago. So there's a few questions I have around that. Onto the SEO. So a 301 redirect, sometimes the most common scenario would be you've had one site built and now you've got a new site and you need to redirect everything. And the proper way to do it is to have the old page redirected to the new page, but it needs to be relevant. So the mistake there is most common is they take everything from the old page and just redirect it to the home page, which is a bit of a lazy way to do it and not the right way. It needs to be to something that was still relevant, because Google will pick up on that quickly and a lot of those pages just won't rank anymore. But if there's something equivalent or similar to link to, you've got a better chance of keeping those rankings.
And we have had one more pop up just to put it out there as well. How can I track, or what tools are available to track the effectiveness of SEO?
Yeah, okay, so effectiveness is an interesting one there. So there's two things I recommend, and they're both free. So you've got Google Analytics and you've got Google Search Console. But what I'd look at doing is just breaking them down into the things that are the most, I guess, important. So in Google Analytics, you can look specifically at the results of your organic search traffic. So you can just see how much that's come from Google search, potentially a little bit from Bing, maybe 2% maybe, but in New Zealand, but a little bit, and from some other search engines. That'll all go into that box, and you can look at the results. So you could say, this is how long they stay on the site. This is what they buy on average. You may look at the bounce rate of certain pages. So if it's very high and it was an information-based page, then you probably look, oh, we might need to rewrite that. There's a lot of tips there. When we're looking at keywords, we're more sort of looking at, what we look at is everything you potentially can rank for on a website. And that becomes, I guess, your market share. And then we go, of that, what's your piece? And then good SEO is continuously coming up with ways to increase that piece of the pie, whether it's increasing rankings or increasing the number of keywords that you can potentially rank for.
Fantastic. Good example there as well with the pieces of pie. So just two last sort of questions from me at this stage. So does having a responsive design help with the SEO at all?
Yeah, it does. Not as in, Google are always looking at mobile compatibility now, and we'll actually see that in other Google tools where they'll throw up alerts saying your website's not mobile compatible. And they are a company which is, you know, absolutely obsessed with speed as well. So they're looking at these things. There's not, where this will probably be the most likely to hurt you first is if someone came from the search results to your mobile site, which hasn't responded properly, and then they bounce back. Google tracks that, and what they can see, they call it a bounce back, is that if that continues to happen a lot, they'll reduce your rankings, because they're interested in serving up the most relevant websites. If they see that happening a lot, they will start to reduce. So it is your content, of course, which is critical, but if you don't have the right website around that, and it's not fast and it's not loading and it's not mobile compatible, then you can still go down the rankings.
Okay, cool. We've just had a great question from Nikki that I'll quickly put in there.
Okay.
So if you pay for Google Ads, will it help you rank higher? And after you stop paying for ads, do you keep the same position or do you drop?
No, absolutely not. There's no connection whatsoever. But where the connection is, and where I think some people may believe in that, is that when you're advertising and you've got a Google ad on a page and you've got an organic listing, usually the click-through rate of both of them goes up. It's maybe a human nature thing. They see you twice on the page and go, oh, these guys must be relevant. Both of those get a lot of clicks. So if you stop your Google advertising, then the click-through rates can potentially drop. And then if you're not reading your analytics correctly, then you've gone, oh, it must be because we stopped advertising. You're right, but the two are not directly connected. They just, I guess, the attribution of one to the other exists. Yeah.
Okay, awesome. Learned something new there myself. I just want to touch on, so I know Google does update sort of their what do you call it, their scripts and their robots from time to time. Yeah, algorithms, thank you. So you know, I know a recent one was around SSL certificates a while ago. So how important is that to your site?
Yeah, I don't think it's an option now that you've got to have it. There's no way, especially if you're trying to sell anything, that you can have someone turn up to the website and the first thing they see is a big red bar saying, this website's not secure, would you like to continue? That's your chance of a sale has just gone to about zero when that happens. So just from that alone. But obviously Google brought this in for a reason. So if you haven't complied by now, you need to do it quickly. Yeah.
Fantastic. Thank you for your time there, Bruce. If anyone does have any further questions, feel free to put them through and we can look to answer them directly to you. So I just want to recap on today's session. So COVID-19 is forcing us to change the way that we work and buy. This could eventually turn out to be incredibly positive for a lot of businesses. So what we do know is working and shopping from home will become the new normal as people are forced to operate in this way. There's certainly an opportunity there with the lockdown in place that a lot of business owners are looking to work on their marketing and their website, so they are ready to bounce back. And it's a great time to get some of the SEO basics in place. A small prediction here, so customers will be researching products and services online in higher volumes once business restrictions are lifted, in particular because there are the different alert levels that could come into play first. And our recommendation is the way businesses operate will need to change with this lockdown and use this lockdown, to review, adapt and evolve quickly so you can be at the forefront of the recovery. So just quickly jumping into who we are. So Zeald have helped over 15,000 businesses transform digitally over the last 20 years. We'll be running webinars like this at the moment twice a week, although over Easter it is going to go down to once a week. And we are going to be sharing our top tips for you to adapt and evolve in this challenging time. Our next webinar is on the importance of strong communication in times of uncertainty, and that's this Friday at 2 p.m. It will be a discussion on how you can address the questions of your customers and employees quickly and efficiently using digital channels.
Awesome. Yeah, so I'll just one last little bit from me. Thanks to Lisa for picking up the moderator role today so that I could have a bit of a chat and present. And thanks again, Bruce, for coming in as our advisor. Some great insights there as well. Thank you very much. So I hope you enjoyed today's session. One thing we would like to announce, this is a pretty big for us. We've seen that there's a lot of Kiwi businesses out there that are really struggling. And so we've launched our Get E-commerce movement to try and help small to medium businesses get online and transact really quickly. We are giving away the setup for free of 500 e-commerce websites. That's pretty massive. So that's a free e-commerce website, 12 months worth of free hosting, and the only part that we'll try and recoup in any costs is a small 2% transaction fee if those websites start to do well to help fund the rest of the websites as well. So more details can be found there at zeald.com, but if you know a business that needs to get online and get an e-commerce site sorted quickly, then please direct them through to zeald.com and that initiative. We want to help as many Kiwi businesses get online so that they can survive as possible. And I know that the clock is ticking. We've got to do this quickly. So we're trying to do our bit to help. And if you want a bit more detail, go to zeald.com. We'd love your support with that initiative so that we can reach as many Kiwi businesses as possible. Speaking of help, if you do need some help with that SEO, like maybe you've got the basics in hand now and you're going to implement those and you need to get into some more advanced things, then please do let us know. We'd love to help you. We're sending out a feedback form on this webinar. So please give us your thoughts and also indicate if you'd like some help in this SEO area. Thanks again to everyone that took part today, and thank you for joining us. I hope you have a great Wednesday afternoon. Thank you.
Thanks, Joe.